send this to the papes. What? I know I'm live. Come on. Alright. Oh, what's up, Matt? Alright. The papes have been notified. It's popping. Futures are pissed. Oh, what's up, Billy? Well, what's up with the other futures, though? Oh, I don't know why I thought that would be any better. Well, you know. See what happens. Been sizing it. We're still pretty high, though, but that is it's quite the angle. Got some turn action. That's good. Son of a bitch. Really? Wow. Guess we should have played that one today, huh? God, I almost just YOLO'd like 300 shares over in here. Because I didn't know it was going to happen at earnings. I never hold through earnings, but I was feeling froggy and I decided to play Riot instead, and that was not a play. Got in, jumped out, blah. This is going to be a play again, though. Mark my words. Coin's going crazy right now. The Bitkerns. Stand by. Alright, we got some time. Got a couple minutes. Huh. But that's not that crazy when you look at this. They were downtrending with Roni like everyone else. Started to uptrend, and then they just got hit when the June-July pullback happened, and they've been down ever since. So now that we're about out of the water, there's lots of tickers that are like this that are finally getting to breathe, and it's not going to be unusual for them to shoot up that much. Expectations for what? For the stuff and things we're about to watch, or for these guys right here for the stair step action? Expectations is the stair steps go to heaven. Or talking about expectations for the Barclay action. I don't know. I hope it's not just recycled stuff we've already heard before. But it's an event and Hyliion's in it, so you know we got to be there. Yeah. Yeah, that's my thought on that. But if you look, there's like a lot of people that are at this thing, so they just have different time slots where they're presenting. So, I don't know. I have no idea what to expect. I've never seen this before. Heard of it, haven't seen it. Yeah, I think it might be the same thing too, but I'd rather hear it first. Seabat. Could have told you that was going to happen. They're way, way, way out of their range. Even before all this, like, who were they? No one. It could be someone now, but not that someone. Yeah. That ain't them. Oh, what's up, Bagged? Did you ever get in the Discord? I thought I saw you in there. Can't remember. Hello. Stuff with things. Alright. Yep, that's popping. Powered by Zoom. Oh, okay. What up, RS? That's my guy right there. That's my guy, peeps. One of our technicians. Where's Alex? Is Alex in this biz? Hey, Brendan, what's up, dude? Talk to you in a little bit. You thought they were gonna hold? They might. It went pretty quick. Oh. What's that sound?
Roy, we cannot hear you.
Good. I couldn't hear him either. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Getting some ring action. Some buzz action. Oh yeah, let's have bets. What is he gonna say? What does he love to say? He's gonna say products. Products. Products.
Good afternoon. It's Rory Elliott at Barclays. I'm joined this afternoon by Thomas Healy, the founder and CEO of Hyliion. Now, Thomas, I know you had a couple of slides you wanted to share to walk through the Hyliion story. Do you want to start off with some presentation materials and walk through the slides you put up?
Absolutely. Are you able to see those now, Rory?
We are. Thanks, Thomas.
Terrific. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Thomas Healy. I'm the founder and CEO at Hyliion. I got a few slides here to just kind of give a little overview on our company and talk a little bit about what we're up to. And then Rory, I think we'll go into some Q&A and happy to answer any questions y'all might have. But to start things off, so Hyliion has recently just emerged into the public markets. We are trading now on the New York Stock Exchange. We recently completed a SPAC transaction with Tortoise Acquisition Corp. And along with that, we raised a $325 million PIPE in conjunction with the $235 million SPAC. And Hyliion is a company that is focused on bringing electrified solutions to the commercial vehicle space. Now, one of the things that is very unique about the approach that we're taking in this sector is that we are a powertrain company bringing electrified solutions forward. So we're not reinventing the whole truck, but we're able to bring electrified powertrains into this market and specifically addressing the Class 8 sector. So to jump to a little bit about the market size and the opportunity we're going after, and to chat a little bit about the commercial vehicle space. It's a fascinating and unique time right now where fleet owners and operators know that electrification is coming, and they're trying to figure out what electrified solution is going to be right for their operations. And as we look at this landscape, there are really three types of trucks that are starting to prevail. You've got your battery electric plug-in vehicles, you have your hydrogen fuel cell solutions, as well as you have our solution, the Hypertruck Erx, which is a fully electric vehicle that uses onboard natural gas in order to recharge the battery pack as you're going. And so when a fleet is looking at this equation, they're really trying to figure out three things in terms of what solution is going to be right for them. They're looking at cost of operations, emissions that's coming from the vehicle, and what infrastructure is out there that's going to allow them to actually roll these solutions out into their fleet and effectively, roll them out and have it make it be an easy adoption. And so throughout this presentation, I'll touch on a couple more of those points. But, as we look at the opportunity ahead of us in the slide that's on the screen here, and the trucking industry is a huge market. We're addressing an $800 billion market. And as you can see from the table in the top right, we're specifically going after the medium haul to long haul type solutions, fleets that are traveling, a few hundred miles or more every day. Our view is that if you're local delivery short haul, you're going to move towards a fully electric BEV delivery vehicle. But for this long haul space, it opens up a lot of challenges for electric vehicles. And that's where you have these three types of solutions that, we'll be comparing over the next slides. And ultimately, our customers are those who, are shipping goods all across the country. You can see some of the names on the bottom right of the fleets that we're going after to be adopters of our technology. So I'll first start off with a little overview on the products that we have. So we have two different powertrain solutions that we're bringing to market. The first is our hybrid electric solution, which we're actually starting to ship this to fleets already. We have some of the large fleets like Penske and Ryder and Ideal Lease, and recently announced Wegmans as some of the fleets operating this solution and technology already. And the goal of this is to really evolve trucks into almost being like a Toyota Prius, where you still have your conventional powertrain, but now we're adding on an e-powertrain in addition to offset some of that fuel consumption or to add more power to the vehicle. Now, the second solution, the Hypertruck Erx, this is a fully new powertrain for the truck. It's all electric drive, so the rear axles are purely driven off of an electric motor. Then you have an onboard battery pack, and that battery, as opposed to plugging it into the grid, you actually use an onboard natural gas generator that will recharge that battery as you're driving down the road. So, as we go through the next slides, there's a lot of benefits that come from these solutions. The ERX, we look at, the infrastructure that's already out there, as well as the cost savings and emissions reductions that we can bring forward. So this slide really kind of dives into those three categories. And, first we'll start with kind of the cost savings. As we look at these three different types of trucks, the fuel cost is one of the key drivers towards, what is this going to drive a fast payback for a fleet or not? And there's a lot of excitement and interest in the hydrogen fuel cell and the plug-in vehicles and electric vehicles. But it's really important to start to look at some of the metrics of where does this fuel actually come from, and is it cost economical, as well as is there an infrastructure there to be able to support it? And so the first table here really goes into the cost of fuel and comparing where we are today versus where we can go in the future. And so one of the unique things you'll see here is that with our solution using renewable natural gas and conventional natural gas, CNG, we're at a point today where the cost is significantly lower than diesel, but it's even significantly lower than where grid electricity and hydrogen are expected to get to in the future. As we look at hydrogen costs today, as well as the cost that it takes to go plug in a Model S or a Model 3 at a supercharger, those costs are significantly higher than diesel today. And in the future are not projected to quite get down to the same level as where RNG CNG is already at. And then as we look at infrastructure, this is one of the biggest hurdles for trucking, right? We have an infrastructure of diesel stations already well built out across the US that fleets are able to utilize. Now we're asking them to move to a new type of infrastructure. And for hydrogen and for electric, that infrastructure has not been set up yet. And while we do have an electric grid already in place, the demand loads that these electric semi-trucks can pull on the grid, in many instances will require additional infrastructure even being built upstream from just the actual physical chargers. We had a fleet, for instance, look at taking one terminal that operates about 150 trucks and moving that to plug-in electric, and it was going to be about $30 million in infrastructure costs to do that transition. Similarly with hydrogen, these stations cost north of $15 million each in order to be able to set up and build. And that doesn't even take into account the actual accessibility and availability of hydrogen. Right now there is only limited production of hydrogen. There's not enough hydrogen production to move the whole Class 8 space over to this fuel source, and so that's where we would really need to ramp up the production of that fuel in order to be able to move trucks to that type of an infrastructure. And then one of the key points with this is really just the cost at which it takes to put this infrastructure in place. There's been study done where it's going to cost billions, if not tens of billions of dollars, to be able to actually set up the same amount of infrastructure for hydrogen or for electric as there's already infrastructure in place for natural gas. Now, that's one of the key benefits of our Hypertruck solution is we're able to leverage already existing over 700 stations in North America of natural gas refueling stations specifically designed for Class 8 semi-trucks. And this is one of our key advantages because we're not trying to take the capital that we've raised and go build out that infrastructure. We're leveraging stations that are already in place that fleets are already using today. And then lastly, the concern is emissions. And one of the big drivers for moving to electric semi-trucks is to reduce how much GHG emissions is coming from these vehicles. And one of the interesting things we found is that when you really look at well to wheel, so the full emission cycle of where did that fuel come from, how much emissions came from producing it, as well as how much emissions comes from the vehicle, this is where RNG CNG solutions have a big advantage over some of the competitors. With hydrogen, most hydrogen today is actually made through steam methane reforming, which can be more pollutive than even a conventional diesel truck. Electric offers some savings unless you're going to move to purely wind and solar or hydro, which can then get you down to a zero emissions profile. But with RNG CNG, the fact that we're able to take advantage of renewable natural gas allows us to actually have the ability to get to a net carbon negative emissions profile for the truck. And this might be a weird way to think about it, but the trucks could actually be cleaner for the environment to go drive them as opposed to producing more harm. And that's one of the nice things with RNG is this process of capturing what would have been pollutants that would have come off of landfills and dairy farms and it would have naturally gone into the atmosphere. Instead, we're capturing those and then using them as a fuel source behind this vehicle. And the great thing is RNG gets pumped into the same natural gas pipelines that are out there and then is handled on a credit-based system. So with our fleets that we're working with, they can use the already existing stations that are there and then work with their fueling providers to ensure that they're getting availability to renewable natural gas when refueling their trucks. And then lastly, just wanted to share just the cost of ownership of these vehicles. And give me 1 second here to do a slide shift. So, today there's two types of trucks that are on the market today. You've got your diesel solutions as well as your hybrid electric Hyliion trucks. Now, when we shift to our hybrid solution, there's a nice opportunity for cost savings there for fleets, and this is a technology that's available today. And as we look at those future solutions, the Hypertruck one is really the only one that can offer a significant cost savings over a conventional diesel truck when you look at a 7-year cost of ownership. BEV vehicles as well as fuel cell vehicles in many instances can actually be more expensive than a conventional diesel truck. And one key thing to note on this slide is that we've actually used the fuel costs of where the future projections of where they're hoping to be, not today's reality of where the costs actually are. So, there's a lot of advantage to leveraging natural gas to produce the electricity locally on the truck and use that to be able to drive the vehicle to reduce costs, improve emissions, and leverage an infrastructure that's already in place. So that's a little bit of an overview on us as a company. And, Rory, I think you've got some questions that we can dive into.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. That was really helpful. I think maybe we'll start on competition. So obviously all the large truck makers and tier one suppliers are focused on building out their own electrification solution. And the truck market's obviously fleet driven in terms of a high degree of specification. But what are you sort of seeing in terms of pushback from the OEMs who are trying to direct customers to their own electrification solution?
So, and this was showcased a little on that initial slide, but the OEMs are really focused on local delivery, short haul, full electric trucks. And, that's where their time and effort and R&D dollars are going towards. There's also been a couple of OEMs that have announced, focus on hydrogen fuel cell for the long haul space. But, to first start with fully electric local delivery vehicles, I mean, this makes a ton of sense. The OEMs are getting a lot of interest in it, but that's only addressing a small segment of the actual Class 8 market, right? A lot of these trucks are driving hundreds of miles a day. And you start to get to a point where it requires too large of a battery pack, and a battery pack that ultimately costs too much in order to make it economical for the long haul or over a few hundred miles a day. So the OEMs are kind of focusing on that to start. And then some have said that they're looking at the long haul space as a hydrogen opportunity. But those same OEMs have also expressed to us that, hydrogen fuel cell, while, and we believe this as Hyliion as well, we've actually designed the Hypertruck to be able to evolve over to hydrogen when hydrogen's ready. But, the hydrogen market is years away from being practical. The costs are high. There's a lot of development that still needs to happen. Infrastructure needs to get put in place. So, that's where we see the Hypertruck as being a here now type of a solution that's economical today. And, the response from the OEMs is they see this as a wonderful opportunity to have a product available for the long haul market now and not need to wait till when hydrogen is ready. And, I think there's a lot of debates on when hydrogen will be ready for that space.
Thanks. That's helpful, Thomas. And then in terms of competitive moats in your system, what are the most important assets here in terms of what's patent protected? And then do you envisage other players trying to sort of effectively mimic your solution?
Yeah, so we've obviously taken a pretty aggressive approach on just trying to protect, what we're doing, the intellectual property around our system. We've been filing patents, but I think the core thing is really having that advantage of being the early mover in the space. Already having systems deployed, as I mentioned, we've already got our hybrid systems out there with some fleets and some very large fleets, and that allows us to have some of the learnings already kind of understood as to what it takes to get an electric truck out in the hands of customers, and what are the things that customers really need to see in order to make this product a success. And the other big thing of this is that as we deploy these units and they're driving hundreds of thousand miles a year, normal truck will do between like 100 to 120,000 miles a year. We're capturing data coming off of these vehicles, and then we're able to use that data to not only improve the algorithms of our truck to make it more efficient, but we can also do a lot of other neat things with that. And, things like predictive maintenance and data analytics, and trying to figure out how to overall improve the efficiency of the vehicle. And, that's something that even, as others come into the space, we'll have a leg up with already having that information under our belt, having those learnings behind us, and being able to carry those into the products that we're making moving forward here. But ultimately, as we look at kind of the core focus of our organization, it comes down to the system integration and the software that goes around it, including the battery management system and the algorithms to drive the vehicle, as well as the actual batteries. Now, we're sourcing our battery cells from Toshiba, but then we're doing all the battery packaging, cooling, the actual modules in the pack in-house.
Right. And then I know you're sort of front and center with a lot of the fleets. What are you seeing in terms of key motivations for adopting the Hyliion technology? Is it TCO, fleet emissions? I know you highlighted some advantage. What's sort of really driving the adoption?
Yeah, so and to start off, I'd say it's been reassuring and also fascinating for us of just the interest level from fleets. And we kind of initially got into this and looked at it and said, we're going after an industry that hasn't gone through a significant amount of change over the past years, and will fleets be receptive to this, or do they just want to stay on diesel? And to our surprise, fleets have been super excited about this shift towards electrification. They see it as a great opportunity. But they also are trying to be realistic with fleets make money on moving goods from point A to point B as inexpensive as possible, right? So they need to see the cost savings from a solution, and then if you can also bring forward the emission benefits, that's a huge win. Now, there are some fleets, some organizations who are characterizing emissions as the key driver. We've seen some of the large companies here in the U.S. and internationally set very aggressive climate change emission plans. And that's fantastic. But if we can bring our solution forward and offer them both the cost savings and the emission savings, then it's a win-win, right? It becomes a question more of why wouldn't we do this as opposed to anything else. So those are the two main drivers of what fleets want to see.
Thanks, Thomas. And then in terms of, I know you talked about natural gas and renewable natural gas. Are you seeing any customer concern or potential customer concern around the availability of natural gas and renewable natural gas?
Yeah, so RNG is in a huge, it's another mega trend going on. Just to put some numbers behind this, if the natural gas used in vehicles today, about 40% of it is already coming from renewable natural gas, which is a stat most people don't realize. I mean, RNG is a huge source of natural gas for the automotive sector. And there's actually just as many RNG capturing facilities in development right now and being built as there are already in existence. So the amount of RNG stations or capturing facilities being put in place is growing at a fast rate. And so in terms of availability of RNG, it's there, it's available now. The stations are there. I mean, you can run thousands and thousands of trucks off of the infrastructure that's already in place. And then, as we look at the RNG side of things, I think it was a study done by the EPA where they found that, if you set up capturing facilities on kind of the opportunities here in the U.S. for RNG, you could run about 200,000 vehicles purely on renewable natural gas. So this is a strong, available and prevalent fuel source. This isn't like, we can move 1,000 trucks over to this and have a net negative emissions profile. No, this is a real fuel and one that's picking up a tremendous amount of momentum.
Right. And then on that, you mentioned RNG was cheaper than diesel. Is any of that subsidy driven? And if so, sort of how much and what does that regime look like?
Yeah. So there are subsidies specifically for renewable natural gas. There's LCFS credits, there's REN credits, depending on what states you're actually sourcing it from. But overall, natural gas as a whole is less expensive than diesel. I mean, we've got fleets that are actually buying it for less than a dollar per diesel gallon equivalent of CNG. So it's a pretty inexpensive fuel. The subsidies on it, we're talking probably around can be in the 25 cents range, in terms of government incentives per fuel for, I believe that's for the LCFS. There's also another, it's around 40 cents for from a federal standpoint of incentives on natural gas, CNG as well. And so there are some government subsidies in place that are helping with driving the cost down. But one of the nice things with natural gas compared to diesel fuel is when you go fuel up a diesel truck, that cost of the fuel you're buying, the majority of that cost is really coming from the actual source of the fuel. A lot of the cost is not in the infrastructure or transportation. A lot of it is the actual fuel itself. Versus with refueling a natural gas truck, the actual fuel cost, the CNG or the natural gas cost, is a much smaller percentage of the overall cost per gallon. So the nice thing with that is as natural gas prices fluctuate, it doesn't cause as much of an impact of your kind of overall fueling cost of the vehicle, which is very different than how diesel fuel works today.
Thanks, Thomas. And then I know, natural gas trucks have been around for a while. What's the advantage of, the Hypertruck versus what we've sort of traditionally seen on a natural gas vehicle?
So with the Hypertruck, you get the benefits of electric. You get high horsepower, high torque, efficient drivetrain, but you also get to couple that with the benefits of natural gas, which is low cost and great emissions profile for the fuel. Now, the downsides of some of the conventional natural gas trucks out on the road today is that they're underpowered compared to a diesel truck. Just the amount of horsepower a natural gas truck puts out is significantly less. We actually put one on a dyno, and it was down in the 200s in terms of horsepower that the vehicle was able to actually put out. Versus diesel trucks, at the crank can be anywhere from 400 to 500 horsepower, and so there's a big difference there in terms of actual horsepower that these trucks are able to put down to the road. And that causes an issue where drivers don't like them, right? I mean, drivers are resistant to driving a vehicle that has less horsepower. So from that standpoint, we're able to overcome that challenge by giving drivers the experience of an electric truck, which is more horsepower than a conventional diesel.
Right. Thanks, Thomas. And then, you've got the Hypertruck. Do you ever see Hyliion developing a full BEV truck down the line?
So one of the things that we've forecasted is the hydrogen fuel cell. So one of the nice things with the Hypertruck powertrain is that the architecture of it is almost identical to a fuel cell truck. The only difference is, as opposed to using a fuel cell as your generator, we're using a natural gas generator today. But what that allows us to do is, as hydrogen does get built out and infrastructure and cost comes down, then what we're able to do is switch out that generator for a fuel cell and then step over to the hydrogen space. And so, we look at it as we can get our solution deployed right now today on natural gas, get millions and millions of miles put on that powertrain. And when the industry is ready and when all those other components have been figured out, then we make the step to hydrogen. And, that's when the industry will want to do that. But, right now we've got years and years of a market that can be run very effectively on natural gas and renewable natural gas. And then we've positioned Hyliion to be ready for hydrogen fuel cell when that day comes.
What's your view on when that day will come in terms of the transition?
Yeah, so I think it's, personally, I think it's a long way. I mean, when we look at just some of the facts behind hydrogen, costs are 4x what diesel costs are today, right? Most of the hydrogen in the US is made through a process, steam methane reforming. When we talk about hydrogen and using hydrogen in clean vehicles, we always refer to hydrogen that came from electrolysis. And that's when you have zero emissions. But electrolysis, I mean, I think it's less than 10% of the hydrogen produced in the US here is actually coming from electrolysis. And so, there's a lot that needs to happen in order to get to a clean hydrogen. And then once you even have that clean hydrogen, then you need to build out all the stations and the pipelines. So, I mean, I project it, north of a decade away that will be to a hydrogen infrastructure in place to really be able to run trucks.
Okay, thanks, Thomas. And the Hypertruck technology, do you see that as potentially being applicable to medium-duty applications or even maybe pickup trucks?
It is, and from our standpoint, what we focused on as a company is let's start with the Class 8 market. I mean, it's a huge market, 300,000 new trucks a year being produced just in North America for this space. And, you know, that's plenty of an apple for us to go after and try to bite off. You know, we've got, you know, a great opportunity there. And then as the right time evolves and opportunities evolves, then let's look at bringing this into other classes of vehicle, other types of applications. But until then, you know, our focus is really on the heavy duty trucking market.
And then as we think about a traditional diesel truck as compared to a Hypertruck, what's the sort of componentry that sort of drops off the diesel truck as you install the Hypertruck technology?
Yeah, so you get rid of the internal combustion engine under the hood, the transmission, the drive shaft. You know, those are the components that are coming off, as well as the diesel fuel tanks. And then we're putting on the vehicle e-motor to drive the rear axles, a battery pack under the frame rail, and a generator under the hood, and then the natural gas tanks go on the back of the cab. So, you know, those are kind of the components that we're adding onto the truck. Now, one of the things to highlight, which is very different about the trucking space than the passenger car space, is trucks are all kind of custom built and very unique for the fleet that's buying them. So when a fleet owner operator actually goes and buys a truck from Peterbilt or Freightliner or Volvo, they spec how they want it. They spec, you know, do they want a Cummins engine or a Detroit engine, or do they want an Allison transmission or Eden, Dana drive axles or Meritor drive axles? So, you know, it's a very different space than passenger car, right? You know, if you think of passenger car and someone coming in and offering a new powertrain in a passenger car, that doesn't work, right? That's not how the OEMs are set up in that space. But in the commercial vehicle space, that is how this network is set up. That's where you have companies like Cummins who are able to offer their engine across all the major truck brands, right? So, you know, that's the approach that we're taking to this market, and one that's very different than how the passenger car space works.
That's helpful. And then on your battery and BMS product, what type of chemistry are you using, and what's the current cost on a sort of dollar per kilowatt hour basis?
So we're using a lithium titanate based chemistry. So it's still a lithium ion cell, but titanate is the kind of the main you know, chemical behind it, or titanium. And you know, there's some big advantages with lithium titanate cells in terms of really high charge and discharge rates. You know, very long life cycles. You know, we've been able to do over 30,000 cycles on a cell. And then the last thing is the safety side of it. You can actually puncture these cells and they don't engulf into a fireball, which is, you know, one of the big concerns with a lot of lithium ion chemistries. Now, you hit the nail on the head. The downside is they are more expensive, though. They hold about a 3x multiple on the cost per kilowatt hour over other lithium ion chemistries. But the big advantage we have is that since they're able to handle such high charge and discharge rates, it actually allows us to really reduce the size of our pack. We don't need a really large battery pack. And so, you know, as we move forward here, and there's a lot of concerns going on in the industry right now of what's going to be the availability of batteries. Are companies going to be able to get their hands on batteries? Well, one of the big advantages we have is we're trying to use a much smaller pack to do the same amount of work that, you know, others might need to use. For a BEV long haul truck, you're going to need north of 1,000 kilowatt hours in order to really make that truck applicable for the long haul space.
Yeah, and the business is obviously getting momentum in North America. What's the plans around, you know, other geographies, and in particular Europe?
So definitely see an opportunity overseas that maybe is even stronger than the opportunity in the U.S., right? I mean, there's higher costs of fuel overseas. There's also more focus on emission reduction. So we see it as a really strong opportunity. You know, in terms of how we're actually going to approach it, though, we're going to get the technology rolled out first here in North America. You know, get some good wins here, and then look to move it overseas. But with that being said, we have announced a pre-order from Agility Global Logistics for up to 1,000 trucks, and Agility has a very strong presence overseas, you know, in the Middle East and Europe. And so from that standpoint, you know, they are going to be a great partner from our end to be able to go bring these solutions overseas when that time is right.
Any more sense around when that timing will be, 21, 22?
Yeah, so the timing that we've announced thus far is the second half of next year is when we're going to be doing initial demo deliveries of the Hypertruck with fleets, and then going into 22, we'll be moving that into production, and that will be for North America. So it'll be after that launch of North America.
Okay, right. Thanks, Thomas. And then what's the plan around repair and maintenance once the vehicles are all on the road in North America and then even Europe?
So our strategy is to really try to stay capital light here. And, it kind of goes back to one of the earlier questions of what's the core focus. And, as I said, it's in, the software around the vehicles, the system integration, and the batteries. So as we look at other parts of this ecosystem, to the extent that we can create partnerships and collaborations, we see that as a much faster and more efficient way to get our product to market, as opposed to us trying to do it ourselves. So from a service standpoint, we're working on setting up partnerships to be able to have others be able to service our trucks, as well as, when we look at manufacturing, we've got a great relationship and partnership with Dana. They're actually an investor from a couple of years ago in Hyliion. And so not only are we using Dana content such as the e-motor as well as the axles, but we're actually planning to leverage their manufacturing capabilities and facilities as well to actually produce our products. So that puts us in a position where we're not taking the capital that we just raised to go build what could be a $500 million manufacturing plant, right? We're using the capital to really evolve and commercialize the technology, and then getting these partnerships in place with companies that are already experts in manufacturing, right? Dana has, facilities all around the globe to be able to assemble and manufacture products, and we're able to leverage those through that partnership. And, ultimately they can do manufacturing much better than we can. It would take us years to really set up a plant. So we think that's a much more cost efficient and effective way to go to market.
Right. And you've obviously just gone through a relatively high profile SPAC transaction with Tortoise. Has that helped in terms of the level of customer engagement? And what are you seeing in terms of engagement with fleets, over the last 6 months as sort of decarbonisation becomes an increasing part of the agenda?
Yeah, so when we announced the SPAC, I mean, the interest level, skyrocketed from fleets, right? I mean, the excitement, not only from new fleets coming in, but also from the ones that we already had engagements with. I mean, it was a large validation for them of, Hyliion's a company that's going to be here for the long run. Now we have the capital needed to really go commercialize the solutions that we've been discussing. And so fleets viewed it as a huge positive and win. And so now we've kind of gotten to the point where fleets are reaching out to us and, wanting to learn from us about our solutions and technologies and figuring out how they get engaged. And so, the interest in the Hypertruck has been fantastic since we announced it. And now what we're really working on doing is solidifying those engagements and relationships with fleets that are going to be the initial ones to take delivery of the demonstration vehicles in the second half of next year, and ultimately working with fleets that can bring us forward to achieve those revenue and unit shipment projections that we've put out for 2022.
Right. Well, Thomas, I think that's time. Very much appreciate the time this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you for the chat, and appreciate you having us be a part of this.
Yeah. Thanks, Thomas.
Have a good one.
Thanks. You too.
Hell yeah. Sick. All right, not bad. Well, good stuff. I'm going to go make some food, and then I will see you guys in the Discord. I think we're going to do some group DD research. So, yes, super tight. Hope y'all enjoyed. I will see you in the Discord. I will see you in the next video. Catch you guys later.